Uh, Two maps were presented to Bia. Of what gain is the two maps if we've not heard the United Nations? In fact, the UN is not even updating on their platform the carnage that is ongoing because of of Cameroon despising the territorial boundary of one section of the Cameroons. So if you look at all of that, you put it together, Comrade Zama, it is complex. Now, Kofi Annan intervened and there were peaceful negotiations. Nigeria handed over custody to a colonizer. They are not ignorant that you have Cameroon forces. Now, when you have these same people who handed over to Cameroon, when they are addressing us, they address us as separatists. Not even recognize us as custodians of the land, defending our sovereignty. They are aiding and abetting the government of Yaoundé to despise negotiations. Now, my question to you, Comrade Zama, it's clear we have to do something. We have to take our responsibility and make sure that we get our freedom, since it will not be given to us in a platter of gold. What is it that we are not doing rightly in that will effect some significant changes and will enable us not just to advocate over this land, but to actually win it militarily, own it, control it, and probably get some resources from it, and get international partners looking at us with some seriousness and respect.
The realities of the war at this point in time, we are doing the most we can do with the resources we have. As I said, logistically, for us as a government, right now, we are not able to do the things that we can do to hamper the exploitation of oil and gas on the peninsula. There are the Chinese there, the Malaysians are there, the Gazprom, the Russians are there, the British companies are there, the American companies there. So there are companies that are doing exploitation, down service and up service. Those that are servicing those companies, they are all in that area. We are fighting a tough war with very limited funding coming from our people. Until our people commit themselves to funding this war, we will not be able to do the most at the shortest time possible that we can. But
No,
we
no,
are
no,
doing
no,
the
no,
most that we
I'm not
can do
cutting
at
you
this
short.
point.
I'm not cutting you short. Before you start accusing our people of being unable to fund the war, which I think they need to see Ambazonia as a reality and based on something. I want to ask you a question. You've just said something very important. The Chinese are there, the British are there, and all of these different people, and these are important stakeholders and partners. These are people that could make things happen if they know that we have a whole of the territory. And Cameroon is organizing this August 14th activity to tell these guys, listen, your interest is safe. It's quite a serious thing. Do you think we have to diplomatically approach these people and quote them all these laws that this place belongs to us, or we will have to take it somehow by force or do some sabotage? Because Pastor Fu said something, and that's why I'm challenging you to talk heavy. He said we need to blow off some things, and so that the stakeholders can see their interests going in rambles. And if they cannot fund Cameroon from fighting, or something can happen. So that's where I want you to take it before you get to telling our people how less they are funding the war.
Now,
Right.
those are legitimate economic targets that we can target. That's true. Nobody is disputing that. The ideas that we have are lofty at this point in time. We have to have the manpower, we have to have the logistic, we have to have the equipment. We are not saying that we cannot do it. I want to be honest to our people, because sometimes we say a lot of lofty things and then let our people down because we are not able to execute what we tell them. Uh, yes, it's a difficult war. Yes, the same thing happened in South Sudan. The Sudanese government also claimed territories in oil fields in southern Sudan. But what happened to that? They had to give that up. Eventually, um, we will get the knowledge, we'll get the ability to be able to confront these things, and we'll be able to fight in those oil fields when need be. At this point in time, we are getting the primary duty that we have is to protect our civilians, in our communities, and all the other things that we are doing as a people. But to talk about hitting Bakassi, yes, that's a big target. That is something that we must do. It's not something that we should ignore. It's something that we must do. But on the other hand, we have to start realizing that as a government, we have to put all aspect of our diplomacy into getting in contact with all these people. We have to see what the terms of those contracts are. We have to be able to find out what are the deals that they have given to the Chinese, to the Americans, to the British, to the French, and all those people who are exploring that area. And I've said this a lot of times. As a community, we can have a lot of influence in these companies. A lot of these companies that are exploiting the properties in the oil in Bakassi are all publicly owned companies. We could buy stocks in these companies and have a say in these companies when it comes to meetings with the company heads. It's a backward door that we can go through to be able to make our concerns known. Not only that, we can actually fight the war, which we are doing, but it's progressing, even though it's not progressing at the speed at which people are thinking. We have to give our soldiers on the ground a lot of courage. We have to give them a lot of commendation for the fighting that they are doing, because we are actually beating La Republique at this war. Yes, this theater of war should be changed. It should be changed in that area where it's affecting them much more. Cameroon, to be honest, is not producing. Many of the companies out there have abandoned their rigs, because Cameroon is producing about 56,000 metric 56,000 barrels a day. At the peak of it, they were producing about close to 180,000 barrels a day. They are producing 56, just about a mere one-third of what it was. So this war is having a big effect on them, the people on those islands. They've had a couple of crashes in that islands. Helicopters have crashed and burned, even though a lot of those things are not published out there. But the economic pressure that we are putting on Cameroon is making them unable to have those people service those rigs, because Cameroon has a portion of the oil that comes in there and a percentage of the sales. If they are not getting it, they are losing money. And fighting this war is costing them tens of billions of francs every month. It's not sustainable, and we are going to bleed them. And bleeding them, we might not even need to even touch Bakassi for it to have the effect. But symbolically, Bakassi is the heart of it, and we will have to reach there when that time comes.
That's what I want. Yeah.
Can I?
Now, yes, just react very quickly.
I am getting a little bit uptight.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the draft program, Indian is almost the last. If you look at the draft program, Indian is almost the last. The conditions for the draft, Indian will not be able to meet those conditions. I am saying here that Indian should be made an exception and taken over by the federal government somehow. Listen, I am cognizant of the fact that we don't have the means to blow up anything in that area. But if we fortify, beef up our Ambazonia restoration forces in the creeks of Ndian and put the right equipment in their hands. Not much. I'm not saying that we should do that. We should look for huge sums of money to buy huge equipment and so on, because we are not able to. We cannot. But to put Ndian at the tail end of the draft is to ignore the economic potential of Ndian. And I can tell you that the draft of Ndian will yield nothing if we take the same conditions that apply to the whole to all the counties in Amazonia. I'm saying that Ndian, which is an economic live wire of Amazonia, should be an exceptional place for us to escalate. Look, the boys in Ndian are very volatile. They know the creeks better than anybody. And we can beef them up, bringing in some of the boys that we may have in the surrounding counties like Meme and other places, bring them in and let them work together, work in the creeks and trouble that area. I'm not saying that we can blow up anything now. I don't know why the military people are not understanding what the listen to me, what the economic stakes are. La Republic can do all the propaganda. Can I finish?
A moment, please. Yeah,
I will lose my train of thought. I will lose my train of thought.
Just give me a few minutes. I'm trying to coordinate something here. I like what you're saying. It's a repetition of what you said earlier, and I believe what you're saying.
No. I talked about the draft of the.
Yeah, just a moment. It's in agreement with what SoS Zama is saying, that we will need to use that as an option. But there are other facets in what he said, which I don't know if you think we can use it in addition with what you are saying, using the direct and the indirect approach, because there are stakeholders involved, there is interest involved. It would amount to a huge loss if we go aggressive with what you're suggesting, considering the fact that Cameroon is using or having much more money to invest just to secure their interest. That will help you to fit in whatever.
Now listen, maybe you guys may think that I am not cognizant of what is Indian. Let me give you the companies that are Indian. You have Perenco. Yeah. I just came from ground zero, so I can tell you. You have Perenco, you have Ada, which is Chinese. Perenco is made out of the French and the English. You have the Ada, which is the Chinese. You have the Russians who are drilling there. And you have ELF, the French company. And they are all drilling in the Gulf of Guinea. They have not touched Bakassi. La Republic is launching Bakassi from August. They're launching Bakassi from August. And we cannot sit here and not escalate a little bit of what is happening in Ndian to give these people the impression that Ndian is not as safe as La Republic is trying to present. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yes.
Listen to me very carefully. Anybody who thinks that we have not done diplomacy right to the doorsteps of the British and even the French and the United States and other stakeholders, the only people that we don't have any dealings with are the Chinese. We are at war. We don't need any diplomacy to blow up a rig if we have the means. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we already have Amazonia restoration forces in Ndian. We need to raise the stakes by beefing up that fighting force, by giving them a little bit of means to trouble. Listen to me now. To trouble them in such a way.
And you are suggesting that the interim government strategically should just own Dian because of what is happening. That's your suggestion. Am I correct?
That's my suggestion. We may not own all of it, but we should attempt to own Dian.
Yes, pause 1 minute. That the federal government should just own Dian. Pause 1 minute. SoS Zama, what do you think about that from a technical perspective?
What does he mean by owning Dian?
I'm saying that.
Let me explain that. No, he has asked a question. Let me explain that. Let me explain how you own Dian. Let me explain how you own Dian. Let me explain how you own Dian. You own Dian by beating up the Ambazonia Restoration Forces in Dian, by doing everything to put equipment in their hands that they can trouble that area, trouble it in such a way that anybody coming there is afraid.
I thought you were saying that the federal government, instead of leaving it to the responsibility of the county, which might not be able to put themselves together, I thought you were actually
the federal government should own Dian.
That the federal government should own Dian. Okay, well, that's the question. Yes. What do you think?
Well, that's a very viable option that we can have. But I just want to tell you that there are options that are going on the ground right there in Dian that we don't need to talk about. There are things that are happening in the background that doesn't have to be spoken. But I can tell you that we have a lot of presence in Dian. It might not be in the large numbers that people are thinking of, but we have a presence there that's an effective presence. That's a very utilitarian group of people who are willing and able to work and who know what to do.
And who are planning to do something. You don't need to divulge information about that.
That comforts me. That comforts me. That comforts me.
It's not that we are sleeping. We know where, we know what to do, we know when to do it, and we'll do it. As I said earlier, when that time will come, it will be known.
Dr. Tita,
Paddy, I want to say that this we should not apply the same condition that we're applying to other countries for Dian, because Dian is a bread basket. Dian is something that if we lose Dian, we have nothing.
In the strategy for Dian, you have said it loud and clear, must be unique. Dr. Tita, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Director Paddy. Senior Barrister, I mean, I get what you're saying completely. I mean, I agree with you. Now, in the aspect of the strategy or the conditions, I think that it's very clear, you know, some of those conditions that were laid down yesterday, you agree with me that the federal government will continue to do what they're supposed to do, which is drafting all of the counties, irrespective of all of these conditions that were laid down, because we have this war to win. It's our responsibility and it's our duty as fellow Ambazonians to come in and support in these counties. Now, whether Dian was put at the last or at the end of the drafting session, would that have an impact on the action on the ground? I don't think so. And why do I not think so? Because we just completed the federal draft, and I know that the federal government can come in to support Indian, you know, in any area, in any aspect that they need in an effort for them to carry out the right action that they're supposed to carry on the ground. We need to make this very clear to every Ambazonians that none of us was trained for this, and this is in the aspect of the boys and what type of action that they can carry out. Remember that we were not informed that this war was going to start in 2017. We were not prepared to take the boys to go and train them and all that kind of stuff, or give them the right equipment that they need to in order to defend homeland. So this just came in and the boys decided to step up against the colonial regime. But let me tell you that from that 2017 up to now, the boys have learned and they've acquired knowledge that can come in very helpful and handy in defeating the regime. I want to say this very clearly, like some of the discussions is going on that our boys don't have the equipment to blow up some of these whether it's the oil wells or some of these areas there in Dian, I'm going to say that the knowledge is there, the know-how is there. We have guys on the ground that are very committed, and they have this knowledge in order to carry out this project. The pressure now is it enough to be able to execute on some of this project? It's a gradual process. I can assure every Amazonian that gradually, we will get there where you will see this sophistication coming out on a regular basis on the ground. But one of the things I wanted to talk on, Paddy, you talked about what are we not doing right from the beginning. You talked about the UN is not updating the carnage that's going on the ground. I'm going to tell you from my own assessment, the UN is ashamed of the damage that they see on the ground, and they're not taking action. The moment they start reporting or updating the real numbers that is happening on the ground, is going to be that moment where they need to make a decision or take action or call for La Republic Cameroon withdrawal from Amazonia. So that is for sure. So is that they're not reporting it or they're not making it public? It doesn't mean that they don't have it. They're receiving this data and they have it. They know it's very scary. This data is not easy enough to just see all the carnage that La Republic Cameroon is committing on the ground. It's not been put out there yet, because the moment that numbers goes out and is made public, they have to take action. Number two, what are we not doing right? Absolutely, this interim government under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikomesako is doing everything right for the people of Amazonia. I can tell you that to make sure that our people get the freedom that they need, and our people must get the recognition that they need as an independent people. And La Republic Cameroon, colonial administrators and military have to move out of Amazonia, and that should be happening sooner than later. So there are all of these things that are happening, that is happening on the ground. So, but we continuously stay focused. The draft is coming up. The conditions of the draft that have been laid down by the Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization, and Resource Mobilization is there. The government is working very hard to make sure that every county is drafted, and for sure that every county will be drafted. Now, no matter the time, the federal government is there to come in to support the counties, and that's why we did. The president, did an upgrade, I consider, to the drafting period to the drafting system that we have by drafting the